Welcome. Good afternoon, good evening to some of you as well. I know we've got people from lots of time zones this morning. So welcome to this special Geoscience BC session on public geoscience in the Golden Triangle in northwestern British Columbia. My name is Richard Truman. I'm the Director of External Relations at Geoscience BC, and I'll be your MC for today. We've got some really good updates for you today. A quick rundown. We'll start with we'll start with our Carlos Salas, our Executive Vice President and Chief Scientific Officer. He's just going to give you a quick run through of an introduction to Geoscience BC, especially for anybody that's new to us. We'll then hear from our special guest, Kendra Johnston. Kendra is the President and CEO of the Association for Mineral Exploration, or AME. She'll talk a little bit about the Golden Triangle and mineral exploration in the area. We'll then move on to our Vice President of Minerals, Krista Pellet. Krista will take us through some of the existing public geoscience that's already available for Northwest British Columbia, as well as a few other events that are coming up in the next few weeks that some of you may be interested in. But for Geoscience BC, one of our major initiatives right now, and the reason we're organizing this session for today, is our Golden Triangle Geophysics Data Compilation Project. And our Manager of Minerals, Brady Clift, will talk you through that project before we then open things up for questions and for some discussion. We should have plenty of time for that discussion. You can place questions in the chat at any time, or you can raise your hand using the raise hand feature, and we'll pick those questions up at the end. By default in this meeting, your microphone is muted, and to keep things running smoothly, we ask that you keep it that way unless you're asking questions. Please keep your cameras turned on if you can, so that we can see you all. And also, to keep the meeting running smoothly, we're going to lock the meeting room in a moment so that nobody else can join, just as I say, to help things running smoothly. My last housekeeping note, as it were, is that this session today is being recorded. The link it'll be up on YouTube in the next coming days, and we'll email you the link in a few days so you can share with anyone else that might be interested. I'd also just like to acknowledge that the area of the Golden Triangle that we're talking about today is in the lands and territories of Gitignan, Metlakatla, Nisga'a, and the Tahltan nations. Thank you to their representatives for their thoughtful input. I think we have some of them on this call today, so really pleased to be working with them. And of course, thank you to all of you for attending. It's great to have a gathering of so many people. I think we've got, 80 people now and growing for this session this morning, which is great, from mineral exploration and from mining and from communities up in northwestern BC, and nice to even see some of our former Geoscience BC colleagues here as well. So now I'm going to pass you over to Carlos, our Executive Vice President and Chief Scientific Officer, and I'll be back a little bit later for questions and some discussions. So Carlos, it's over to you.
Thanks, Rich. Good morning, and thanks everyone for joining AIM and Geoscience BC in our Golden Triangle webinar, highlighting efforts to get more geophysical data into the public domain. I'm Carlos Salas, Chief Scientific Officer at Geoscience BC. And for those who don't know who we are, Geoscience BC enables responsible resource development and encourages investment through independent, relevant public earth science about British Columbia's mineral, energy, and water resources. We work collaboratively with the resource sectors, academic communities, indigenous groups, and governments, resulting in nonpartisan, unbiased, and credible earth science. Since 2005, we've completed over 156 mineral projects. Our research complements government agencies such as the BC Geological Survey and results in freely available and reports which are peer-reviewed. Today, we're going to be talking about BC's most active mineral exploration area, the Golden Triangle. It hosts 2 operating and 5 proposed mines, as well as hundreds of mineral projects spanning the exploration to mining continuum. And key to the development of mineral claims is geophysical data, as you know. Did you know that for every dollar spent by Geoscience BC, $6.60 gets invested in the mineral exploration industry? And that's what we would like to talk about today, the Golden Triangle Geophysics Data Compilation Project. It's an exciting opportunity for the mineral exploration sector to pull together and create modern, public, geophysical data set, as well as identifying future research needs in the area. Now, one person that knows the Golden Triangle quite well is AIM President and CEO Kendra Johnson. So over to Kendra and tell us a little bit more about AIM and the Golden Triangle.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Kendra Johnston here, President and CEO of the Association for Mineral Exploration British Columbia. I'm sure many of you know AIM and are familiar with the work that we do, but for those that are not, we are the lead advocacy group for the mineral explorers and developers in the province, and our aim is to promote and protect the interest of all of those BC-based or those operating in British Columbia, all of the explorers and mineral developers. So thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure for me to be here and to have the opportunity to speak with all of you and with Geoscience BC. So we are here today to talk a little bit about the Golden Triangle. And this year in British Columbia, we have actually ended up having quite a phenomenal year after a very, very slow start and of course a very slow March and April from a financing perspective and getting projects out into the field and whatnot. But so far to date this year, BC-based companies for exploration in British Columbia have raised more than $270 million. 180 of that, $180 million have been spent in the Golden Triangle. And from all the news releases we've been tracking across the board, there have been more than 375,000 meters of drilling happen just in the Golden Triangle alone this year. So that's the distance from Prince George to Smithers, or for those more familiar in the south here, Vancouver to the Okanagan. So an impressive number of drill meters being drilled up north this year. So traditionally, the traditional Golden Triangle and the area that Geoscience BC is going to talk a little bit about is a slightly different version of the traditional Golden Triangle. But the traditional Golden Triangle goes from just south of Stewart, diagonally to the north east up towards Red Chris, and then west out to the coast and back down to Stewart. So quite a large area. Of course, some really great infrastructure in that area as well, with Highway 37, as well as the Northwest Transmission Line, which follows Highway 37. And then, as Rich mentioned at the beginning, it is the traditional territory of a number of First Nations, but the two that we work most closely with up in that area and are involved in the BC Regional Mining Alliance focused on the Golden Triangle this year are the Tahltan and the Nisga'a Nations, which do hold the majority of the land under that traditional Golden Triangle area. And finally, I just want to congratulate Geoscience BC on starting this project and reaching out to all of their stakeholders. The value of collaboration on a project like this and creating a data set that will be very, very useful, not only for folks that are exploring in that area, but investors looking at bringing dollars into the area, and really just the overall development of our understanding of the geology and mineral potential in British Columbia. These projects hold so much value with that collaboration in mind, and the team building of all of those members who take part is an unbelievable value to that this type of project as well. So congratulations to them. I hope all of you who are out there can join in this project and receive some tremendous value from it as well. So with that, I will pass it over to Krista Pellet to give you a little bit more information about Geoscience BC and the work that they're doing. Krista.
Thanks, Kendra, and welcome everyone. So I'm going to start things off by talking a little bit about the projects that Geoscience BC has undertaken or supported in Northwest BC over the last 15 years. And then we'll move it over to Brady to talk a little bit about the project that I'm sure you're all most interested in. So looking at some highlights from Geoscience BC's work since 2005, our big project in the Golden Triangle area is the Quest Northwest program. So I'll spend a little bit of time today telling you about that geophysical program, some of the regional geochemistry work that was undertaken, as well as some of the mapping and mineral deposit studies Geoscience BC has supported in the area over the last 15 years. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about some other projects of interest and some upcoming events that you might be interested coming up here in October. Next slide, Rich. So looking at a map of BC, as Kendra mentioned, when we're talking about the Golden Triangle in terms of Geoscience BC's work on this current Golden Triangle project, it's a little bit different. Today I'm going to focus on an area looking from north of Hazelton up to about Dease Lake, which encompasses our current Golden Triangle project, as well as some of our other work in Northwest BC. Next slide. So here's a map that we'll be seeing both in my talk and throughout Brady's talk. This is the current extent of what we're looking for as part of our Golden Triangle project. You can see it includes the Smithers just west of Mesiatin Junction area, up past Eskay Creek, KSM and Bruce Jack, not quite up to Telegraph Creek and Iskut, and we'll talk about why that is in a few minutes. But that blue outline you'll see on most of my maps just to be able to orient you in terms of some of the other projects. So that blue outline is the outline of our current Golden Triangle project. Next slide, thanks. So Geoscience BC started working in Northwest BC right from the get-go. Some of our earliest projects, in fact, our first project started in 2005, looking at the geology and mineral resources of the Skeena Arch project. That work was undertaken by Don McIntyre and produced the Skeena Arch metallogenic map back in 2007, which is available through our website. Also in 2005, we started working with Natural Resources Canada, doing a targeted energy resource study in the Bowser and Sustut basins of BC. That produced a series of geological maps with the Geological Survey of Canada and is available from our website. Next slide. But really, the bulk of Geoscience BC's work in Northwest BC really didn't get going until around the time we undertook the Quest Northwest program. This program was launched in 2011 and included a program of regional airborne magnetics, regional geochemistry, as well as a bedrock mapping partnership project with the BC Geological Survey. If you look at that map on the left, you can see 3 blocks outlined, blocks 1, 2, and 3 outlined in black. That is the regional airborne magnetic program. The yellow and purple outlines show the extent of some of the geochemistry work that was done, and a little harder to see around Dease Lake is the partnership project with the BC Geological Survey doing a mapping program. Next. So why did we look at Quest Northwest? Well, as probably a number of you who've been working in BC for a number of years can remember, Geoscience BC's initial major regional programs, the Quest West, and Quest South programs all took place more in the interior of BC, and the regional geophysical program at that time tended to consist of airborne gravity data and in some cases collecting airborne electromagnetic data. About the time that our technical advisory committee suggested that we look at doing more work in the Northwest, it was agreed that really what we should be doing are more detailed airborne magnetic surveys. And you can see in that center image there, that is what the previous airborne magnetic data, the public geoscience data in and around Dease Lake looked like at the time. And when we flew Quest Northwest, that produced the image there on the left. It's the same area, so you can see it's orders of magnitude of difference. Quest Northwest was really the start of Geoscience BC venturing into doing these more tightly spaced airborne magnetic surveys, still at a regional in nature, but really trying to improve the airborne magnetic data in a region. Next slide. So looking at the project area again, you can see the brown outline showing our current Golden Triangle project. And up at the top there, you can see there are the 3 Quest Northwest airborne magnetic surveys. Zooming in on that, you can see there's the 3 blocks, the Dease Lake block up at the top there that's not labeled, the Telegraph Creek block, which the resolution isn't coming through quite well at the moment, and as well as the Iskut block. These were flown as 3 separate blocks back in 2011 and 2012. The first 2 were flown the first summer, and block 3 was flown in 2012. Next, Rich. All 3 were flown using a Helimag Stinger system at a 250-meter line spacing with a draped surface at 80 meters. All told, Geoscience BC collected about 45,000 line kilometers of airborne magnetic data between the 2 years, covering an area just under 10,000 square kilometers. Block 3 was a bit of an interesting scenario. That one we flew the second summer, and as soon as we put out our call for proposals, we received interest as to whether or not we'd be interested in purchasing industry data in the area. Previous work Geoscience BC had done, we had partnered with companies when flying new surveys, but this was the first time we'd been approached to purchase data from a company. Ultimately, we ended up purchasing data from Newcrest Minerals Limited that got added into added into our data set. That data was collected at 100-meter line spacing. We flew the rest of the survey to 250-meter line spacing. And it really adds fantastic value to the survey. We're able to use our money to go further and fly more of an area if we are able to incorporate industry data. So since then, we've incorporated that model into a couple other programs. Some of our search projects and as well as our Trek projects do have small blocks of proprietary industry data that we have purchased. This Golden Triangle project that Brady's going to spend some time talking about in a few minutes is really our first attempt to purchase a lot of industry data, and we're really excited about it. Just quickly highlighting some other geophysical data in the map area. If you're not quite focused on the Golden Triangle, Geoscience BC did also fly an airborne magnetic survey in 2015. In the search area, this spans roughly 6,700 kilometers between the Terrace and Kitimat and Smithers area. And it also overlaps what we called our Quest West project, which we flew back in 2008, which has 4-kilometer line-spaced EM data and 2-kilometer line-spaced gravity data. And then also just sneaking in there on the eastern boundary is our Search Phase 3 Airborne Magnetic and Radiometric Survey. This is in the Tutagon region. That data was released in 2018, flown in constant elevation. This was also funded by the Northern Development Initiative Trust, and we thank them for their partnership on a number of our programs. So that's really the extent of Geoscience BC's geophysical data in Northwest BC. And if we move to the next slide, we'll change tacks a little bit and talk about some of the regional geochemistry programs Geoscience BC has undertaken. And there's a couple of shots from a few years ago. So regional geochemistry, Geoscience BC has been involved in doing some of the regional geochemistry work in BC since our inception in 2005. We've covered all parts of the province. So just focusing in on Northwest BC, I haven't highlighted the Quest Northwest samples specifically in this just because there's so much other work that's been done. And you can see the light blue dots show the stream sediment samples that Geoscience BC has reanalyzed since 2005. Those are samples that were originally collected by the BC Geological Survey or the Geological Survey of Canada, and they've kindly given us permission to reanalyze those samples and put up-to-date information into the public database. As well, you can see the dark blue samples. That is the new regional geochemical sampling work Geoscience BC has done in the area. And down in that southeast corner there, you can see there's a little bit of reanalyzed till sampling work. So you can see there's been a huge amount of work done to the regional geochemical survey database. Next slide. But we've also continued to add value to that as well. One program that wrapped up just a couple of years ago was a project by Dennis Arney doing an integrated assessment of regional stream sediment geochemistry for metallic deposits in northern Stikenia. That project considered the almost 15,000 stream sediment samples from 21 to 250K map sheets in Northwest BC, so including the Golden Triangle area. Next, Rich. And that report really not only assisted with updating the locations for historical samples that might not have been located correctly, but suggests that there remains significant potential in Northwest BC for new discoveries simply through adding new infill regional geochemical samples. The project demonstrated that data analysis and statistical approaches can help improve targeting in the regional data sets. And all of this is available in ArcGIS workspaces that users can dig into the results. Moving over to mapping and mineral deposit studies, our major contribution as part of the Quest Northwest program was sponsoring work in partnership with the BC Geological Survey, just north of Telegraph Creek around Dease Lake. This, as I mentioned, was a partnership with the BC Geological Survey. The mapping program itself was led by Jim Logan, and they were able to go in and map 1 to 150,000 bedrock map spanning 104 J08 and the east half of J07, and produce the Dease Lake Little Tuya River region geology map. That was co-published with the BC Geological Survey and came out in 2012. If you flip over to the next slide, there's a quick image of it. Oh, okay, we went past that, that's fine. And in addition to that regional mapping program, they also produced a more detailed study of the Mesozoic magmatism in the project area. That work was led by Bram van Straten, who is with the BC Geological Survey as well, and that was also released in 2012. So that was a fantastic partnership project that we were able to work with the BC Geological Survey. They were able to utilize some of the new geophysical data and update the bedrock mapping in the region. Next. In addition, we've been able to partner with MDRU on some work in the region. MDRU, as many of you might remember, undertook a project in the Iskut River area back in the late 80s and early 90s, titled The Metallogenesis of the Iskut River Area in northwestern BC. That produced some fantastic mapping in the area, but as of about 10 years ago, those maps weren't available in a modern GIS format. And so although Geoscience BC wasn't involved with the initial project, we were able to provide support and help transform 3 1 to 50,000 scale maps into a modern GIS format, and that's all available through our website to download. And those were released in 2013. And there's a quick picture of the maps, some fantastic mapping work done by Peter Lewis. Next. Geoscience BC also does, from time to time, sponsor smaller mineral deposit studies. One with MDRU, which was led, the student was Jessica Norris on that project. I was looking at the upper parts of an alkalic porphyry copper gold deposit at Red Chris. That thesis came out in 2012. And Geoscience BC was really thrilled to be able to provide some project funding for that, as well as a scholarship. And from the Colorado School of Mines, looking at carbonate alteration as an indicator of proximity to Eskay Creek type deposits. And again, we were able to provide some research funding as well as some student support to the project. Looking a little further east over to the Tutagon, I thought I'd throw this in there again as we saw some of the Tutagon geophysics a few minutes ago. This was a project that we worked with MDRU on and wrapped up last fall, so it's almost a year old at this point, looking at the exploration framework for porphyry to epithermal transitions in the Tutagon. It's a fantastic report, and we're really thrilled to see that industry is already picking up, recognizing the potential of this work and helping guide exploration. Some projects maybe on the more community side, or what we call sort of our historical BC projects. Look, Smithers Exploration Group came to Geoscience BC looking for support to restore their collection of Cordilleran rock samples. This is an over 2,000 piece collection of rock samples kept in Smithers from Northwest BC and North Central BC, and it's used by students, local communities, geologists, and prospectors on a constant basis. I'm sure it's maybe a little slowed down with COVID here, but it's a fantastic sample set. So we're really thrilled to be able to add new samples to their collection, support them in promoting the collection at conferences or through events, and also preserve the collection both physically and, maybe more important right now with COVID, in a digital sense as well. So that project is still ongoing. We'll be wrapping up this fall. And if we flip to the next slide, one that is just wrapped up this summer is a similar partnership with Below BC, looking to digitize BC's geological heritage. Below BC recognized that there's so many samples out there that the majority of people just don't have access to, and BC is full of just fantastic rocks and minerals and fossil samples. And so Below BC spent last summer doing a bunch of field trips through BC, one specifically through northwestern BC, collecting and digitizing these specimens. All this is available on their website, and I encourage you to take a look. Finally, I'll just touch on a few of the upcoming events here in October. The first one, which is next Monday, is Cordilleran Geoscience, a 2020 perspective. This is led by the Pacific section of the Geological Association in Canada, the GSC, and the BCGS and the Yukon Survey. This is their workshop that they were hoping to run, I believe it was back in March, and as everything in March got postponed, it's been moved to this Monday, October 5th. I think it's most of a day event, includes some talks on Northwest BC, and I believe they're still taking registration. So if you haven't already signed up, it'll be a fantastic day of talks. Coming soon from the Geoscience BC perspective, we have a couple of reports coming out with UBC here shortly, one that's just come out, one that's hopefully coming out soon. A preliminary report, Sorry, if you can hear me, I've suddenly lost my screen.
We can still hear you, Krista.
Okay, I can't see a thing.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. So the carbon mineralization project is looking at the potential for ultramafic rocks in BC to sequester carbon. That a preliminary report will be coming out hopefully in October, and there may be a web event. And I believe my last slide focused on the, just a sec here. An MDRU report looking at porphyry fertility using zircons. That report came out last week, and we'll be hopefully hosting a web event here in October. So I'd encourage you to stay tuned to your email lists and catch up with that when the webinar is announced. As with all our projects, all of our data is available online. So I'd encourage you to stay tuned to our website, sign up for our email lists. If you have any questions about specific data sets, feel free to email Brady and myself. And with that, apologies for the end there. I will pass it on to Brady.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project that that most of you are probably here to learn about, our Golden Triangle Geophysics Data Compilation. So as everyone's kind of hinted at here this morning, we are trying to collect geophysical data through the Golden Triangle. And here on this map on the screen, you can see our outline for the Golden Triangle. And we've got some reasons why we picked this outline as opposed to the Golden Triangle everyone's used to. As Krista mentioned, to the north there, we've got some parks. We don't want to work in parks because none of us can work, no mineral exploration can happen there. And the little blue shaded area, that's where we did our Quest Northwest work. So we didn't want to work there. And our technical advisory committee for the minerals side, they said we should do some work up here. So this is the outline that we came up with working with the BCGS. And we also did a lot of consultation with First Nations throughout the area. And this is the agreed upon outline that we think is the best to get us a good regional data set of data for the area, working with the Golden Triangle here. So what we're looking for is airborne geophysics that's not publicly available. And by not publicly available, we basically mean that your raw data hasn't been sent out that anyone can go and download it. So if it's in an ARIS report, it's probably not publicly available because you probably haven't included all the raw data. And if it's in images or in a news release, they're probably not quite there. We can go back, Rich. I'm not quite done yet. So, so this is the kind of data that we're looking for. But why are we doing this, and what's the whole point? So we know, like the Golden Triangle, as all of you probably know, it's a difficult area to do work in, especially with a helicopter. There's lots of weather issues and terrain issues, and it can take a long time to get through that. So if we were going to do one of our typical large geophysical data sets, it may take us several years to complete this data, and who wants to wait that long? So the other way to do this is to see what smaller surveys are available over different properties and try and stitch it all together. And then the reasons that we want to get this new updated data set, you'll see the images here on the right side of the screen. These again are from the same area. This is from our Vancouver Island North data set that we collected last year. So the top, this is regional geochem that was collected in the 70s. And then below, that's what we collected last year in 2019. And if you can't see any good targets in there, then you need to hire a geophysicist. This is a huge difference in the quality of data and what you can see in the regional, for the regional picture here. And the data is so much better from what we collected that it makes it worthwhile to do this kind of work in these large areas. All right, Rich, we can move on now. So how do we collect this data? Well, if you want to contribute to this project, you're going to have to send us an email. You can send it to goldentriangle@geosciencebc.com. We're going to keep that available until October 16th. And the first thing you need to send us is just a shapefile or a map of the survey that you have. Send the year the survey was flown, the line spacing, the drape percentage of the survey and the height above the surface, and any other acquisition parameters. So that would be things like, did you collect EM, MEG, radiometrics, that sort of information. From there, we'll set up a confidentiality agreement that'll allow us to review the data without you having to worry about us putting it out to the public. And then once we do that, we'll put a value on it. We have a formula set up that we'll go through, we punch in all the parameters, we review the data, and then we come up with a value on it. You're not going to get a dollar for dollar purchase price from us, but you can cover some portion of the cost. It's usually somewhere in the range of about 20 cents to the dollar, but it all depends on the quality of the data and the area that it covers. And then we'll set up a purchase agreement that you can either accept or reject. And if you accept that purchase agreement, we'll add it to all the other data that we get, which will all be published publicly and made available sometime early next year. So people can download it and review it and hopefully get a better regional picture of the geophysics throughout the Golden Triangle, and maybe help mineral explorers find new targets and new places to search. And I think that's it for me. I'm gonna throw it back to Rich, and then we'll get into some questions.
Okay, thanks, Brady. So we've had some really good help in terms of getting this project ready. So the BC Geological Survey have been great and have been involved in the planning, and we hope that this research will help to guide their future research too. A thank you to the communities that we've worked with and that see potential in, or the value of bringing new investment potentially to Northwest BC. And also to the Indigenous communities as well involved during the planning stage. So as I mentioned at the beginning, Gittinyao and Metlakatla and large areas of Nisga'a and Tahltan lands and territory. And just like to highlight that we do also have in place a collaboration agreement with the Tahltan. And that's been really helpful in making sure that they have access to all of this data for their own uses as well. And a reminder that yeah, this data is public, so it doesn't matter who you are and whatever your interest may be up in the Golden Triangle. This can be useful for land planning and for economic development planning, as well as for mineral exploration. So quick reminder of some of the pieces that Brady mentioned. So there is a shapefile for the project area that we're interested in on the Golden Triangle project page on our website. So if you go to geosciencebc.com, you'll see that this project is highlighted on the home page. You just go into the project, and at the bottom of the page, you'll see that there is a shapefile available if you want to check that any data that you have is in the area of interest. A reminder that the deadline just for that initial expression of interest is October the 16th at 12 o'clock Pacific time. That isn't any kind of commitment right from the beginning. That email address again is goldentriangle@geosciencebc.com, and we have a little bit of time left, so happy to answer any questions that you have. Just having a quick look, we've got just over 90 people on the call at the moment, so happy to answer any questions that people may have.
I've got one for you.
Hello.
So are you going to be continuing on to the Dagon area?
That's a good question. Brady or Krista, are you able to answer that for us?
Yeah, I'm able to answer that, Rich. Right now, the project that we have is focused on the Golden Triangle. And so that's our primary focus of interest. That's not to say that we won't consider purchasing data if somebody is interested. Definitely shoot us a line. But right now, the primary focus is on the Golden Triangle and trying to compile as much geophysics as we can in that. But definitely, I mean, we're always interested, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Krista. And I see David Moore, you popped a question on the chat about extending this approach. Did you want to expand on that question maybe a little bit, David? No? Okay, so Krista, the question that David has put in the chat is, has Geoscience BC considered extending this approach to other prospective areas of British Columbia?
Yeah, we've definitely considered it. Like, as I mentioned before, that right now the project that we have sort of set up and with funding ready to go is for the Golden Triangle. But certainly if this goes really well and there's a lot of interest, I think it's something our technical advisory committee would be really interested in seeing more happening.
Okay. And feel free to keep adding questions in the chat function, people. I'm struggling to see any hands raised in the just because of the way I've got my screen set up at the minute. So if you do have any questions, if you could pop them into the into the chat. Brady, perhaps could you give us a bit of a reminder of how the process for this works? So if people think they may have data in the area that may be of interest, that what they need to do first of all.
Yeah, no problem. First thing you need to do is just send us an email at goldentriangle@geosciencebc.com. We'll ask you for a shapefile or a map of the area, the line spacing, the year the survey was collected, and what other data you may have collected with the survey. If you know the height above the surface that was collected or the drape percentage, that'll also be helpful. And then from there, we'll just start communicating back and forth. We do things like we'll get a CA, a confidentiality agreement signed between Geoscience BC and yourself, and then we can review your data, and then we'll make a purchase commitment or an offer. And if you like that offer, we'll get it all set up, and we'll get this data available publicly, probably sometime early in the new year. And that pretty much sums it all up. It's pretty easy. Just the big thing to remember right now is goldentriangle@geosciencebc.com. And if you've got any other questions, even if you're not 100% sure what you want to do or how to do it, just send an email there. It comes to Krista and myself. We both see all those emails, so we'll get you an answer as soon as we can.
Great, thank you, Brady. So some good questions coming through on the chat. So the first one from Riaz Mirza asking, we've had a bit of a focus on airborne geophysics, but are we also interested in ground geophysical data?
Right now, we're just looking for airborne geophysical data. The point here is that it covers a larger area, and we're trying to be a little bit consistent because we want to try and stitch the data together. It's going to be a bit of a challenge depending on what we get, because all the surveys are going to be different heights, different types of surveys, different equipment. But we're going to try and do our best. We have a geophysicist, Todd Ballantyne, who does that work for us. And we kind of are thinking about different ways we can put this out to the public, either where we stitch it together and we level everything at one level, or we're going to put each survey out individually, and then people can kind of see how they kind of relate, although they'll look a little bit different. So it would be a whole new challenge to add in ground geophysical data. And typically ground geophysical data just covers so much smaller of an area, and we're using such a big area. We kind of want to see what's available for airborne data before we move into other potential projects or areas here. And then I'll just move on to the next question I see in the chat here. Rich, do you have any specific years of data you're interested in? I think when we started this program, one point that our geophysicist Todd made to us is that it doesn't really matter what year the data comes from. If you can have good data collected in 1999, or you can have bad data collected in 2019. What really matters is how the data was collected and how it was recorded. And we'll review all that. So we don't really have any specific years that we're interested in. We just like to have an idea about when it was collected, how recent it is, and then we'll put this into our program that'll spit out a price for us. And we'll also add a little bit of nuance to that calculation where Todd just reviews it to get a good sense of the data that we have. I see there's another question here from Jules Lajoie. This one I'm going to throw over to Krista. Would the participants get exclusive use of the final product for a period of time as an incentive?
Hi, Jules. Right now, we don't have that built in. So right now, the plan is to acquire as much data as we can and release it to everyone all at once. So I'll leave it at that for now. But if somebody's waffling on it, then we can maybe have a discussion. But right now, the plan is to make it all public to everyone at the same time.
And I see there was one more question on the chat as well about whether we have any equipment specifications. Maybe, Krista, that would be a good one for you as well, maybe.
Actually, I'll pass. Brady's probably the best one to answer that one, Rich. Yeah.
Okay. For the equipment specifications, we don't have any. anything specific that we are looking for the equipment. Right now, we're hoping to find airborne magnetic data, but we also know that through the Golden Triangle, lots of people collect EM data and radiometrics. Most of the time, mag data is collected simultaneously to those types of surveys. So we don't really know what's available. That's kind of the big question right now. So we're hoping to get mag data for as much of the area as we can, but we're not going to limit ourselves to what type of equipment was used to collect it, besides it being just airborne data. Again, we'll evaluate it all and see how it all goes, and we'll try and level it all together as best we can, or we may end up putting out each part of it as an individual survey, but it all depends on what we end up with. We just don't know right now.
Okay, there's a question here which has got Brady's name all over it, and I see that Todd, our geophysicist, is on the call as well. He might like to jump in too. But saying that 1971 line spacing was 800 meters and 2019 is 250 meters, doesn't that have any effect on the data? That sounds like a good one for you, Brady.
Well, I think Todd answered it really well, because as you pointed out, at 800-meter line spacing, you're going to have a much higher survey height. So that's the example that we showed there with the 1971. That was from our Vancouver Island North program. So those were the same area, 1979, 800-meter line spacing. You would have been doing a drape surface at that. So you probably were flying at least 1,500 meters above the surface. If you were over in a valley, it was probably a lot more. The northern end of Vancouver Island's pretty rugged, like not quite like the Golden Triangle, but not too far off. The image behind me and that you can see behind my screen is from that survey. So you can see like it's not exactly a flat area. But the survey we did, as Todd pointed out, our lines were spaced 250 meters apart, and the height, they always tried to keep it at 80 meters above the surface. So when you have that kind of difference, you just get a more consistently collected data. You'll get a better survey, and that's why you see such big differences in those pictures, including that giant circular target right in the middle that could be anything.
Okay, thanks, Brady. And then there's another question, which I know is one that we get a lot when we're talking about geophysics projects, is whether it's possible to combine LiDAR data with the magnetic survey data.
That one I have to throw over to Todd.
So, Todd, Todd, I can see that you're in the chat. Are you able to?
Yeah, I just unmuted. Okay, so the question was about LiDAR?
Yeah, so the question was, could you combine LiDAR data with the magnetic survey data?
You certainly could. You could just replace the DTM that comes from, like the calculated elevation model from the airborne data. You could replace or just simply add an additional topography channel based on the LiDAR. The only difficulty might be is that the airborne data could have a cell size of let's say 30 meters, wait, 50 meters. And so your LiDAR data would be downsampled significantly from probably what it was collected at. You know, maybe there's a way to find a sweet spot in there, but it would definitely be less resolution, but still potentially better.
Okay, thanks, Todd. And it's great to have an expert like you involved in this project. And I know you were listening in while Krista and Brady were talking earlier. Is there anything else, as you're thinking about data and thinking about reviewing data, is there anything else that you wanted to share with the group that you would want to look out for, or any requests you would have for people?
No, at this point, no. We might have more thoughts and questions once we get more data, especially overlapping data, right? It's still very early on. And so I think we need to see more response. But ideally, the goal is to present this data in a manner that offers the best functionality to the public. And that'll be interesting in mountainous terrain, because we can certainly, as Brady said, we can upward continue everything to sort of the highest data, but that really does a disservice to the lower, more detailed surveys. So it will be interesting to see how this all comes together.
Great. Okay, thank you, Todd. Well, seeing no more questions on the chat, I think we're getting to the end. We were planning to finish at about 10:50. It's 10:45, so you get some bonus time to grab yourself some extra coffee maybe. But before we disappear, just a quick reminder. There was Krista ran through a lot of information, I know, in her presentation, and she mentioned a couple of events that are coming up in the next few weeks. If you're not already on our email list, I would strongly recommend that you do so. We send out emails updating people on new projects that are starting, when projects hit major milestones, and we have initial reports, and of course when projects finish as well. And remember that all of the data that we produce is public, and everything that we're producing is peer reviewed as well. So if you hop onto the Geoscience BC website, so it's geosciencebc.com, scroll down to the bottom and you'll see you can sign up for our email list there. And if you sign up there, you'll make sure that you'll get all those updates on the events that are coming up. And of course, you'll also make sure that you get any updates on this particular project as well, on the Golden Triangle as well. I would also encourage you, I know there's a lot of events coming up with AME as well. They have some really good events coming up regarding marketing, social media marketing, and crisis communications as well. So if you head over onto the AME BC website as well, you'll see there's some good events coming up on that side too. And then of course, a reminder that October the 5th is the Cordilleran workshop. I believe their registration is closing on September the 30th. So that is tomorrow. So if you're interested in finding out more about Northwestern BC, that would be a great place to go as well. So seeing no more, oh, sorry, I see there is one more question in the chat, so maybe I can fire this one at you, Brady, before we disappear, about whether there's any specific software that people can use to see all of this data.
Yeah, that's a really good question. When we have all the data available, you'll be able to download everything from our website and put it into your own software. Most of it will be ready to be used for ArcGIS. That's the program that we use. But if you just want to look at everything that we have, you can use our Earth Science Viewer. You can get there again from our website. On the main page, you'll find a link to our Earth Science Viewer. It'll open a new window for you. And then you can search through in a web-based GIS environment and turn layers on and off, and it will include all this data when we release it publicly.
Okay, thank you, Brady. And then so final reminder before we disappear, for anybody interested in mining and mineral exploration in BC, that AME has their roundup event next year. It's taking place virtually, and I understand that registration is now open for that. So you can hop over onto the AME website, and registration is now open for that as well. So yeah, seeing no more questions, thank you to everybody. This has been a really useful session, and we appreciate having so many people taking their time for this. Encourage you to have a think about data that you have for the area and contributing it by October the 16th to that Golden Triangle at Geoscience BC email address. Thank you all again, and we look forward to talking to you all before too long. Thank you.
Thank you.